Hello, I'm Brett Gilliland, host of the Circuit of Success podcast, and here's what's coming up on the show.
There's four main buckets of your life. There's your professional, there's your personal, your health and wellness, and your relationships. Yep. And to really have an optimized life, you have to find balance in all of those areas. And it's not going to happen just organically. You really have to be intentional about what you do in those areas. You have to have goals. You have to have habits that you create to make sure you're touching on those four buckets all the time.
Welcome to the Circuit of Success. I am your host, Brett Gilliland. Today I've got Laurie Wintonick with me. Laurie, how you doing?
Doing great, Brett. How are you?
I'm doing great. You're in New Jersey. What part of New Jersey? I didn't ask that part.
Yeah, I'm actually, central northern New Jersey. It's really northern New Jersey because, there's the argument whether central Jersey exists or not. But I am in the northern part of central Jersey in Colonia, about half hour, 45 minutes from New York City, half an hour from the beach, an hour from the mountains. And yeah, it's
beautiful.
Nice.
You got anybody in the Super Bowl we're maybe rooting for this weekend?
Not really. I was I'm a Giant fan. I live in New Jersey. I'm a Giant fan. Sorry, Jets. But I was really hoping that the Chargers were going to make it in this year.
Yes.
Kyle Vanoy is someone that I've worked with, and I was really hoping for him and his team to get in. So I was kind of bummed when that didn't happen.
Yeah. They had a good season, but didn't get quite far enough. So you are the CEO of JI Elite Coaching, which is Jesse Itzler, which for those of you that are on social media, Jesse is a phenomenal follow, but you run his coaching program, which we'll talk about. But you've been an executive before, and you what I see you called yourself a serial volunteer, loving to do all that stuff, but really helping tons of people with the coaching that you all do out of the JI Elite Coaching Program. But before we dive into that, Laurie, if you could just kind of give us a lay of the land on what's made you the woman you are today.
Really strong foundation of family really is where I'm going to start. So I grew up in a decent sized Italian family, one of four children. Family dinners were super important to us. We were always very close. I could have been anything I wanted to. My mother always said growing up, and all I wanted to do was be a mom. That was my major focus. Went through high school, basically doing everything I could from, cheerleading to student council and all the programs. I was on the, debate team, science club, all of it. And went to college, was going to be a chemistry major in college to be a high school chemistry teacher, and because I wanted to have the summers off because I wanted to be a mom. And, got out of college and kind of was trying to figure out what to do, started working, and just always loved helping people. It was really in my kind of DNA. I'm that, mama bear, they call me, and I like to just always be around helping people get whatever they need and do whatever they need and just better themselves. I took that through college into afterwards. I started working. I got married. I've been married. It'll be 23 years this year. I have two beautiful children who are both in college now and are amazing, amazing young women. And, all through that, every time, serial volunteer, every time somebody needs something done, they call me or I'm in a room. My mother used to say, you really need to get that spring broken. And I'm like, what spring? She's like, the one in your arm that just keeps going up. Like, yeah, I'll do it. But I figure if I can help, I want to. And that's really what's always driven me. And it's just that service mentality that I have. And it's been great, but it also takes a toll when when you're doing way too much. And I kind of lost myself over the years of trying to be a mom, trying to work full time, trying to do all of the things, volunteering everywhere. And the only thing that suffered through all of that was me. And I met Jesse 5 years ago. And once I met him, I realized that I could do all of those things. I just needed to do them differently to make it work. And I needed to make myself the most important person to help in all of it. And once I shifted and did that, everything changed. And I've just really become a better Laurie. I hate when people say they reinvent themselves, because you don't reinvent yourself. You're always the same person at your core. But I've upgraded myself and I've become this better version, an older, more wiser, more learned version of Laurie from, my early teens and 20s.
Yeah. So what did you learn when you say you met Jesse 5 years ago and it changed your perspective? I mean, for those of us that know Jesse, it is amazing what all he does, but how important his family is. But for you, if we could peel that onion layer back a little bit, what changed for you? Like what were the changes that happened, and then how did you implement those changes?
So, as a mom or a parent nowadays, we tend to think that there's this buzz going around about self-care, and we tend to think that that's selfish, and everything we do needs to be for the kids. I wanted to make sure that my children always had what they needed, and we don't really pay attention to all of the things that matter in our life. We're so uber focused on, for me, it was work, kids, work, kids, work, kids, and all the volunteer work I did was around my kids. And the reality of that was I had no fulfillment for myself personally. I had no hobbies. I had friends, but like I wasn't intentional about seeing them. I wasn't healthy. I wasn't exercising. I wasn't eating right, all of the things. And when I met Jesse and he talked about his principles and how basically he ran his life, it was like, wait a minute. There's four main buckets of your life. There's your professional, there's your personal, your health and wellness, and your relationships.
Yep.
And to really have an optimized life, you have to find balance in all of those areas. And it's not going to happen just organically. You really have to be intentional about what you do in those areas. You have to have goals. You have to have, habits that you create to make sure you're touching on those four buckets all the time. And learning that from Jesse, I started to do that. I started to make sure that yes, my job was my job, and yes, my relationship with my family was important, but my relationship with myself was more important. My health and wellness from a mind, body, and soul perspective, I needed to really focus on that. And then I needed to have some personal goals outside of being, the boss at a company, or Angelina and Sophia's mom, or Chris's wife, or whatever. Like I needed to be Laurie again. And without personal goals and areas that I would learn for myself, I was really feeling empty and hollow. So I shifted and started to put some real focus on that intentionally. And that's when I started to notice everything really started to change. And I became a much more happy person, really. That's as simple, as simple as it gets.
Yeah, and that's a big deal, isn't it? And the happiness. But I think too is I would love to learn more about how you implemented it, because it's easy to learn that and know that my personal life, my professional life, my health and wellness, and then my relationships. It's one thing to hear that, right? And it's another thing to then take steps and do something about it. But how did you implement it to where maybe I'm wrong, but I'm assuming that it was easy, then it was hard again. Maybe you fell back into your traps, and then I'm gonna do this again and set these goals and fall back and go forward, and it just
Mm-hmm.
kind of teeters totters for a while. And I think there's something about just showing up every day. Like for me, it's this journal, and it's showing up every day and being boring and making it happen. And so when you hear that, like what comes to mind with all that?
So you just said a word that is basically my motto. You said, it's kind of boring. I on Instagram will always post it, hashtag boringly consistent. I had to build that muscle where I got boringly consistent in the things that I knew I wanted to do. So for my health and wellness, years ago, I was extremely overweight for my size. I never realized it. I was always healthy and active and small. I'm very short, and I, never was a big girl, and I had kids, and I just stopped paying attention. And I had put on a lot of weight. And the first thing I did was realize that I was getting really unhealthy. And longevity is something that's important to me. I want to be around for my kids and their kids, and I want to be healthy with that. So the first thing I did was I sought out somebody who could help me do it right. And I went and saw a weight and wellness counselor. And she put me on the right path. But with that, there was an accountability where, I would go see her every 2 weeks, and we would meet and we would go through what I was eating, what I was doing, where my weight was going up and down. And she really helped me overcome my relationship with food. And I think it's a really important point to make, is that yes, we can do a lot of things on our own, but sometimes you need a coach, you need a mentor, you need a accountability partner, you need somebody. And that was the first thing I had done that made a huge difference in my life. Other areas where I started to make changes were is the community around the Build Your Life Resume program that Jesse had launched. We all were holding each other accountable. We were all cheering each other on, supporting each other, but also pushing, like, why aren't you doing what you said you're going to do? Like, come on, Lori.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need somebody really to, like, when you start to fall, to kind of push you back up and remind you why you started in the first place. It's hard to do these things alone. It really is. And we lose that. When we're growing up and we join a sports team, we're not just a bunch of kids running around the field. There's coaches, there's trainers, there's people involved to help us learn and do it the right way. And then to stand on the sidelines and coach us through the actual act of, of competing. It's the same thing as we get older, but we forget that. And I think inviting Jesse into my life really opened that up again to me, that there are people out there that you can lean on that know more than you know. And I started to learn and I started to think about, okay, what else can I do? So putting somebody in your corner that will help you stay on track until you make those new habits actually become just things that you do instinctively and you get boringly consistent with it. A few months ago, I knew I wanted to work out differently. I knew I wanted to change my exercise habits. I hired a trainer. And it was financially hard to do that. It wasn't like I had all this extra money laying around. I'm like, oh, let me just, no, like I have two kids in college. I have a mortgage.
Yeah.
But it was important. So I made myself a priority, worked it out where I could put some money aside, and I hired a trainer so that I could learn the right way to lift the weights that I wanted to lift, to work with someone who could show me. And now, yeah, I'm in the gym doing it myself, but that's after 8 months of working with somebody and
Yeah.
learning the right way to do things.
It's huge. I mean, I think about, Michael Phelps or Tiger Woods or Tom Brady. I mean, whoever, right? Pick your favorite, the GOAT, whatever. They all have coaches. I'm a big
Mm-hmm.
golf guy, and I watch these guys. They have their kind of their entourage with them every week on tour. It's their mental person, it's their strength person, it's their nutritionist, right? Sometimes their chef, their swing coach. I mean, it's all these people. And I wrote down earlier here when you said you hired a counselor, and I put, believe in yourself enough to hire a coach. And yes, you own a coaching or CEO of a coaching business, but I mean, how important is that to invest in ourselves, even though you said it may be tough financially for those listeners right now that aren't investing in themselves by hiring a coach? What advice would you give them?
Find you don't always have to have the most expensive one. There are things available. If you join a gym and they have personal training and they give you those sessions, take advantage of them. If
Yeah.
there's a community that you can be a part of. So yes, I am the CEO and I run Jesse's coaching program, but we also have an online coaching program, which is a very different price point. And it's amazing material and there's a great community of people who will help you. So make that investment. Find something, there's something for everyone out there. And some people may get it from communities at church. Some people may get it from a running community if that's something they want to do. Are you going to hire, like the top of the line running coach if you're just getting into it? Maybe not. Maybe you can't afford that. But like find the running club in town and start there. If you're interested in something, research the people who are good at what you do, listen to as many podcasts, read the books. There's so much free information out there to start and just get started. The hardest part I think for anything is getting started, but once you start to read up and get educated on it, then you can make the decisions of what fits best for you and then decide and maybe save up to eventually hire that coach if it's something that's important to you.
Yeah.
But there's a lot
And,
of
and
free
some,
resources. Mhm.
Yeah, and sometimes you just got to take steps to do it, right? I'm working with a guy right now that I coach, and he's doing well in all his areas of his life. And for me, it's F to the sixth power. It's your faith, your family, your fitness, your fun, your firm, what I call firm for workout, and then your finances. And so his fitness isn't going as well. And I said, do me a favor today. So literally, this morning. I said, I want you to do 10 push-ups and 25 jumping jacks. Right?
Mhm.
Because I know well enough about people that if you just did the easy thing, that 10 and that 25, that's not difficult at all, right? To do.
Right.
But guess
Hmm.
what? My guess is he's probably going to do another 10 push-ups and maybe do something else over here and do something else. And next thing you know, he's going to work out for, even if it's 10, 15, 20 minutes, it's something is better than nothing. And I think that accountability is a huge piece of that, don't you think?
Absolutely. And having to tell somebody you did it. Um, a lot of people do Andy Frisella's 75 hard, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And why that is so effective. And it's more than just the workouts and everything. It's the accountability of having to show up at the end of the day and click that button that you finished it and knowing that you have to, you actually have to report in that you did it. And I
Yeah.
think people miss the point of 75 hard. It's not about getting the two workouts in. It's not, It's about building that muscle where the consistency happens day in and day out. And it's proving to yourself that you can. There's no reason that you can't. You just have to want to bad enough. And to your point, you want to work out, you want to do something new, jumping jacks, push ups, sit ups, go for a walk. All of this is free. And luckily for you, he has you, and you're going to push him. But set the goals, but make sure having that accountability piece is huge, because having to let somebody know, yeah, I did it, or realize, not just yourself, like, I didn't do it. We can talk ourselves out of anything.
Yeah. Easy
But to
to
get
do
to the
that,
place
isn't
where
it?
yeah, but it's a lot harder to hold yourself accountable. And that's also something that you have to learn. Like, to me, it's more important to get it done than to make excuses.
Yep. I would agree. So, what can you share? Not to ask you to get into details about any difficult parts of your life, but the difficult things you've had in your life, because it's easy to talk about all the success and all the things that go
Hmm.
well, right? Well, we all have things that don't go as planned, and so share as much as you want. But any learning that has come from that, and how did you get out of that tough point, if there is any in your life, and get out of it, pull yourself up, put your work boots back on, and get back after it.
So there's two or three things that jump out, pretty quickly. Um, when everybody laughs when you turn 30. It's supposed to be like this big milestone, like, oh my God, I'm 30. But I turned 30 and was like, life is amazing. I was married, growing up, again, wanted to be a mom. Always wanted to have my kids by the time I was 30. I had it all planned out. I'm a planner, as if, you couldn't tell. And I was like, okay, so here I am now. I'm married. I have a house. I have two beautiful children. I mean, my youngest daughter was 4 months old when I turned 30. I was like, yes. I had a good job. I had everything that I ever thought I wanted. Because, you're growing up, you're in your 20s, you have all these dreams. Now I'm 30, I have it all. And then 35 hit. And I was like, oh, same house, same husband, same two kids, same job. What changed? And it felt like I had wasted 5 years of my life. Like,
Mm,
no, there was no movement, there was no growth, there was no anything. And it was a really bad time of, almost like, I would hate to say depression, but sort of that, like, this just this feeling of like,
sure.
how did I get here? And that was really, really hard. And I was overweight. All of those things were in play. And I was just not a happy person. And I found myself, um, coming home from work and opening that bottle of wine and just drinking away, like, all every day, a bottle of wine, a bottle of wine, a bottle. And I was like, how did I get here? So I decided that I was going to try to figure out some ways to change things, so that by the time I was 40, I made myself a promise by the time I was 40 that I wouldn't be the same person that I was at 35.
Mm,
So again, when people are like, oh my God, you're turning 40, like, I was like, nope, this is great. Make these changes. So I literally had decided, I was in a toxic relationship with my boss at my old job. She was a wonderful person. She was a horrible boss. Like,
mm,
and I always said I felt like, I would be told daily how stupid I was, and then the next day I'd get like a $50,000 bonus to make it better. Like, it was just bad. And I knew I had to
yeah,
get out of there, but I was close enough to being, you know, I was 8 minutes from home, so I could get home anytime I needed to. I could be at all the stuff for the girls. I could volunteer for everything. So it served the purpose, and basically excuse it away, right?
sure.
So I kind of had to find a way to get out of that relationship, take my life back, and find this new job, which I did at the financial planning firm. And once I started there, things definitely started to change. I remember I came home. I was about a week into working at the financial planning firm, which was scary. I took a pay cut. Like, I didn't, it was not a great move on paper at all. But I came home and I was sitting at the dinner table. We always do family dinners. And my husband, Chris, looked at me and he was just like, you look 10 years younger.
Hmm.
I was like,
Wow.
what do you mean? He's like, your face, like, all those stress, like, all of it's gone. And I was like, okay, well, this was the best decision that I made. And then I turned 40 at that job and was like, all right, this is great, new job, new exciting things. And then, a few years later, I meet Jesse, and I'm like, oh my God, this is not good. So I think it's been a struggle for me. So that was like one big thing to overcome. The second area that was really hard for me was at my old job in the financial world. women just are, the old traditional world of banking, finance,
Yeah.
insurance, all of that. Women are the admins, we're the clerical, we're the, we should go get you coffee. We're not executives. And while my boss, who was a wonderful man, and told me constantly, you're an executive in this firm, and you're on the executive team, and there's seven of us, and you're the same as us. I wasn't treated the same. I mean, I didn't get a raise for 4 years. The guys around me, people who were underneath me, actually in the hierarchy on the org chart, were making more money than me,
Wow.
um, because they were considered a profit center where I was a cost center, and I understood that. I oversaw all the admin and all the operations of the firm, but I always felt like, and I say it a lot, I was the skirt in a room full of suits, and I'm not the type of person to yell like, glass ceiling, feminism. Like, I don't do all of that. I believe that we're all equal, we're all people, no matter what, and we need to fight for ourselves, and we need to assert ourselves. And I didn't. And I really shrank into this, like, thought process of, well, I can't change it, but it's good for my family, so I'm gonna accept it, and I'm gonna stay here. And it did a lot of damage to me. Like, it really did. And I didn't realize how much until I got out of it. But it was really hard day in and day out to sit there and be like, no matter what I did, no matter what amazing things I would do for the company, it just didn't change anything. And, you know, um, I think it hit me really hard. The um, the gentleman that was the owner of the company retired. And when I was hired as his assistant, because I was going to, like I said, I took a huge pay cut. I needed to get out of the other job, got hired as his executive assistant, which lasted about a month. And then I was the office manager. And within a few weeks, I was director of administration, and then executive VP of operations shortly after that. But I always did, even as being the VP, I still did his personal assistant stuff. I took care of everything for him. His wife passed while I was working there. I mean, I helped with her funeral arrangements. Like, I did all of
Wow.
it. Was at his house, like food shopping for him, all of these things. And after 10 years, when he decided he was going to retire, and sold off the firm to a gentleman that I had worked with, great guy, he walked in my office for Christmas, and was like, I can't believe this is our last Christmas together, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I know. And he handed me this basket of lotion. And it was a very nice gift. But I was like, this was a 10-year relationship where I went so far above and beyond what anybody was expected, what I was paid for, all of because of who I am at my core. And you're handing me this $50 bottle of, like, basket of lotion. And I was like, okay. And in that moment, I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't work in an environment like this anymore. I can't devalue myself anymore. And I decided for the next year that, like, my goal for 2021 was to get out of corporate America, to figure something out, that I had to find
Yeah.
something else to do. I couldn't sit at a desk and run somebody else's business and make them millions of dollars and be miserable. I just couldn't do it anymore. And especially when you're not really valued
Right.
at that level. They just, there's an expectation, and unfortunately some of these companies, they just don't care, and I wasn't about to do it anymore. So that was really hard. And then this past year um, was probably the hardest year of my life. So I lost my my daughters were away at college. There was some stuff that went on with my younger daughter at school, which was really hard. And navigating teenage daughters, 20, my one daughter's 21, my other daughter's 19 and a half. And, you know, sitting back as a parent and not jumping in and fixing things for them is really hard, because a lot of stuff they have to figure out on their own.
Yeah.
And letting her try to do that was really, really tough. In the midst of all of this, my father, who had been battling and sick for the last 4 years after a major stroke, finally passed away. I got the call on my birthday that he had had a massive heart attack that afternoon. They had revived him after 15 minutes and put him on life support. So I had to go to the hospital on my birthday that evening to remove him from life support. Um, while that was super hard, it was also a blessing, because I was able to he gave me the gift of finally letting go. Um, but the next 3 weeks I had stuff for work, and I know my dad. My dad always called me Larry, and he would have said to me, like, "There's a time to cry, Larry, and this ain't it. Show up and go do what you have to do, and we'll figure it out." So I honored him by showing up and doing all of those things. That was the end of October into the beginning of November. After this 3 weeks of craziness, I came back home. We're all home for Thanksgiving. My dog had gotten sick earlier in the year. We had found out she had a brain tumor. She went blind. She was the sweetest little thing in the world. And noticed the week of Thanksgiving, she wasn't eating. She was declining, the whole thing. And 2 days after Thanksgiving, we had to put her down. And I have never, I mean, I lost my grandmother when I was 20, and that was super hard for me because her and I were as close as you could possibly be with another individual. She was my everything. These two losses back to back just destroyed me. And I had a choice. I could power through like I always do, or I could sink into the grief and let it just sit in it and let it happen and allow the waves. And I have to say, there was probably a good couple weeks where I think my family was really nervous about me. Couldn't get out of bed, couldn't eat, couldn't function. I
Mm.
literally would get up to do the work that I needed to do for the program that I run, because when I make a commitment, I follow through, and that was all I did. My husband used to be like, "Okay, did you eat today?" I'm like, "No." He'd be like, "All right, let's go upstairs. You have to eat something." It got to that point, and this is somebody who is super conscious of her health, does all of these things, but
Right.
the grief just hit me super hard. And it was a really interesting time there. And then my girls came home before Christmas. Having them in the house helped. Um, and it took me a while to crawl out of it, but I was in a hole. I was in a definite hole for a good 3 weeks of just nothing. I couldn't, I just didn't want to. I just didn't want to. And now I look back on it, and there's moments where I feel like it. I feel like I can feel the grief, and I let it come. I don't fight it, and then I allow it to, it's part of life. So I allow it in. I feel it, and then I release it, and I do what needs to be done. And I don't. What's the word I'm looking for? I don't feel bad that I went through that. I'm not upset with myself that I allowed myself that time to just grieve. I think we forget that we're human. And even though we can do all these things and we can power through and show up, like in that moment, for the first time in a very long time, I needed to show up for myself.
Yeah.
And sometimes that meant just sitting on the edge of the bed and not doing anything. That was enough. Like, I got out of bed today. My girlfriend would be like, where are you today? I'm like, I showered.
Yeah.
She's like, okay, small wins, you know. I changed. I got out of my pajamas into a different pair of pajamas, but I got out of my pajamas. Like, like
Yeah.
that was where I was. And it's funny because people who know me, like, they'd never believe it, but it was okay. It was fine. And I'm good. And I'm grateful that I had the time with my wonderful puppy, Cammy. She was amazing, 12 years of our lives, but it's like losing a child. And then, my dad, like I said, it was a gift that to be able to let him go. But grief is, somebody said this to me and it really stuck, is that grief is a result of how much you loved that person and how much they loved you. And the stronger the grief, the more love there was in that relationship. And it really hit me because it was like she was so right in telling me that. Like, that it's a direct correlation. The amount of grief that you're going to feel in that loss is a direct correlation of the amount of the love that was in the relationship. So it's a blessing to have to feel that way,
That's right.
because at least I know how much love there was.
I appreciate you sharing all that. I mean, that's a lot there, right? And I'm sure we could have a whole nother podcast just on some of those things. And but I think, again, at the end of the day, there's this light that you can see right at the end of the tunnel. It may be super super tiny, right? Like the needle point. But what was the catalyst for you? Was it getting this new job with the JI Elite Coaching? Was it, what was it that said, okay, not only am I going to get out of bed and shower and change my clothes, but I'm going to take it to the next step, and now I'm going to start thriving? Because there's somebody listening to this that may not be in that point, right? They're in the point where they don't want to get out of bed, and
Yeah.
they need to hear
Yeah.
that.
I
Like, what was that catalyst for you?
I think I got out of the bad job. I took a new job. Then I was in this other job and I'm like, I can't be there. And Jesse came along and offered me this amazing responsibility in 2021. And I started this company and we do just such great things with people, and seeing them get through has been incredible. So this year, having my own set of real challenges and being in bed and not wanting to get changed, you know, I gave myself the grace of some time. And then I got up and said, okay, remind yourself of this. Like, you've survived all of the bad stuff that's happened to you this far. Like, all the worst days that you thought you couldn't get through, you got through.
Yeah.
So this is just another bad day that eventually you're going to get through. And I try to, Jesse has this saying, no 0 days. And it's basically like, even in the days where you just don't have it, you just do one thing. So like I said, I would shower. I would get up and come down and do some work. And, I would eat, and I would, little by little, I would try to just get through doing something every single day. And eventually that one thing became two things. And then the two things became three things. And I just started to build on it and realized I would get myself back. It was just going to take some time and it was okay. But I didn't I didn't feel sorry for myself, if that made sense. Like I was
Yeah.
feeling grief and I was feeling, but I wasn't like, oh, woe is me. Everybody should feel bad for me. I was like, no, I just feel bad right now. And it's okay. And I had people around me. And, I do say, if you find yourself in a situation like that and you can't pull yourself out, you can't physically get out of the bed to get in the shower, then you need to talk to somebody. You need to, I fortunately had people in my life that I could talk to, that were checking in on me, and that were making sure I was okay. Like I said, my husband making sure I was eating. If he wasn't here, I probably wouldn't have eaten for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Um, just making sure people are around you. And if you don't have that immediate, like, go speak to somebody because they will help you. And, don't try to do it all at once. Just little wins every day. Get up, make the bed, get up, take a shower, get up, leave the house, go for a 10-minute walk, just get outside, do something every day that you can think, all right, I'm proud of the fact that I did that today. And nobody else has to know what it is, and nobody else has to give you approval. It's just that you know that you did it for you. Honor yourself enough to do that. And I knew my dad would be super, super mad at me if I didn't eventually get up. But I also know that it's what I needed, so
Yeah.
I allowed it.
Yeah. Trust your body, right? Just trust your
Yeah,
body. So
trust your body.
what? Go ahead.
No, so and just by building on it every day, you get back into the routines that made you feel good, and then you start to thrive again.
That's right.
Yeah.
What would you say? I mean, you learn most from Jesse Itzler, who's married to Sarah Blakely, who invented Spanx. I mean, they're kind of this powerful duo of people. As Jesse started, the Jet Company, Coconut Water Company, now his All Day Running Company, his coaching, is I mean, all the stuff right that they've both done. What from the outsider looking in at them, along with having four children, what are your takeaways from that family and from Jesse or Sarah that you could share with us?
You can absolutely do what you want to do and do it well, but not have to do it at the expense of everybody in your life. And Jesse says this all the time, like, you should really spend your time doing the things you love to do with the people you love to do them with. Period. Done, end of story. And that's how they live. What you see on Instagram and social media, that's really how they live. If you're at that house, like, exactly what's happening is what's happening in person. It's not for show. It's not, they're so authentic. They really are so authentic. And that's one of the things that I really respect most about them is, Sarah is a brilliant businesswoman. She really is. And she did something because she believed in it, and she worked really, really hard, and she refused to allow any critics in. She just knew that she could, and she, made sure every day she worked towards it. And Jesse, he's amazing. Like, he's crazy. He's amazing. He has these great ideas, and they both find people to help them with the areas of that they're not good at. Sarah doesn't want to be involved in the operations of things. Like, so she makes sure she has somebody doing that for her.
Yeah.
Jesse has great ideas. He needs implementers. He needs somebody to be able to come in and implement what his ideas are, and also be able to work through the fact that he's going to change his mind and he wants something different. And, how do we pivot? How do we make it work? And they don't try to do it all themselves. They get the right people. They hire coaches. They have mentors. They still look for help. And, for me, like I said, being a mom was super important. They didn't have a family for the sake of having a family. They had a family because they want to be parents and they love their children.
Yeah.
And it's important that they're present in their children's lives all the time. And they make it work. They're very intentional with their time.
Well, hats off to them. They're doing them.
Yeah.
They are truly amazing people, and it's been awesome getting to learn from you all the stuff that you have done in your life too. So, where would our listeners find more of you? Where's the biggest hangout for you?
So I am mostly on Instagram these days. So my Instagram handle is LILLG23. That's a little with two L's, G23. I do a lot of posts there. There's a lot of fitness stuff there because that's part of my journey now as I'm approaching 50, is to get in the best physical shape of my life for longevity. I want to be stronger. I want to be healthier. Um, you'll see a lot of my daughters on there. I like to brag about them, and a lot of fitness and a lot of coaching stuff. So I'm there a lot. I'm on Twitter, but not too much. LinkedIn as well. And then we have the coaching program, which is on Jesse's website.
Okay, so just jesseitzler.com on there, and then you can see the JI.
Yep, jesseitzler.com. You'll see there's a coaching tab, and we are the coaching mastermind coaching retreat program, I believe is the click there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me on the Circuit of Success. It's been awesome having you and great learning all the nuggets of wisdom you share with us today.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, Brett.